Quest to Succeed. Chapter 16. Riena's father wanted her to get married into a large joint family. He found Jay's family with the characteristics he was looking for. Jay had elder brothers, younger brothers, sisters, parents, and grandfather. Riena's father could not visualize the problem that could be encountered by his daughter in a joint family, in a faraway village where she had no acquaintances. Jay's mother never approved her from the day she put her foot in the village. She did not let anyone know of her perspectives and thoughts. In the months and years she made sure that Jay did not meet his wife, Riena. It was not that the young woman lived with her parents all the year round. Indeed, his mother Nanda used to send his younger brother Vikram to bring her to the village to live with her and other members of the family. At Diwali time and during summer holiday, however, she was sent back to her parental home. Jay used to come to his village only during these periods. Riena used to live at Jay's parental house in his absence. Nanda continued to exploit Riena as long as she lived with her. Other members of the family could not do anything. It was not easy to question the female head of the family. Menfolk did not know how Riena and other daughters-in-law were treated within the four walls of the house. A joint family did not work for everyone and all the time. It could create social and psychological conundrum. People should attempt to analyze their interests carefully and logically. They should not undermine others. Jay felt that they should show respect to each other and not impose their will and philosophy. The same principle applied to nations, which was vitally important for coexistence and survival. They should seek cooperation rather than conflict, reconciliation, and not to impose their cravings and whims on others. Jay and his wife Riena nevertheless could not work out the reason for this arrangement. One could only imagine what a young married woman would feel to live with her husband's family in his absence. They both were in their early 20s. Jay had a job and sent his earnings to his parents. His wife looked after her in-laws and did the domestic work, cooking, cleaning, grinding flour every day. Sometimes she was mistreated, as if she were a burden on the family. She had no one to talk to about her feelings, and what did she want? Whether she was happy there or not, whether she wanted to live there or not. Still, she did not moan because she had no support. No one physically assaulted her, but mental agony was there. Someone told the head of the house that a few houses away, Atul's mother beats her daughter-in-law with a stick or slaps her by hand. No reason was provided for this behavior or for telling the family all that. On a winter night, Riena, Jay's wife, fell sick and was suffering from high fever. She wanted to stay in bed for a little longer and not to get up at the normal time of 4 a.m. Rather than giving her medicine or calling a doctor, Jay's mother Nanda asked her to get up at that hour and to start grinding flour. Riena begged the mother-in-law to let her rest for a few more hours in bed, and she would do the housework during the daytime. Nanda did not care for such a pleading and ordered her to leave the bed instantly and to begin to grind flour. She said there was a lot of work to be done during the daytime. Moreover, when you start to work, your fever will go away. What was Riena's position in the family? Was she a daughter-in-law in the house, wife of an educated teacher, or a slave? The innocent soul had no choice, and without the brace or backing of anyone, she started to grind flour. She worked all day, cooking, cleaning, washing clothes. Riena spent all her time in the service of her in-laws, who were happy because they had hot meals to eat and washed clothes wear. She was shunted from her father's home to her in-laws' village every few months. Although she was a married woman and was treated like one, no relative or member of her family attempted to find out her wishes and thoughts or her happiness. She attempted to tell her father of the conduct of her mother-in-law, Nanda. He brushed aside and asked her to sustain hardship for a bright future with her husband. Jay's parents never considered sending her to live with him. They wanted her to work for the family and serve them. They were the parents and parents-in-law who needed to be looked after. At the same time, they were receiving money from Jay. What kind of social and psychological impact did Riena have? It was difficult to visualize. There was enormous discrimination in their dealings. Some members of the family thought that she was not needed there, except when she brought dowry from her parents' house and worked hard for the family. That was the dilemma in a joint family. The female head of family dominated and controlled everything and everyone. New and young members of the family simply obeyed her and did what they were asked to do. They had no say in family affairs. In a country where goddess Durga, Lakshmi, Radha, Sita, Parvati and Gayatri were worshipped, how could a young woman be treated in such a manner? Reena's problems, her health and her welfare were ignored. She was not the only daughter-in-law in the family who had suffered hardship and harsh treatment by Nanda. There were 2 elder daughters-in-law who faced similar fates and behavior. For years they were grinding flour, cleaning the dishes, washing clothes, and did the cooking, all under the control of Nanda. They tolerated it at that time, but never forgot the conduct of their mother-in-law. In the years to come, when they set up their own families, they did not invite her to their houses and did not visit her in the village except at the times of wedding of the younger daughter and the boys. The 4th daughter-in-law was surprised when she experienced the same approach as the elder ones. When she went to her parents' house, she told her father about Nanda's mode towards her. The young lady's father wrote a long letter to Jay's dad, criticizing him and reminding him of the old days of his life in Delhi in the 1930s during the recession. Jay's dad could not understand why his daughter-in-law's father had written such a bitter letter. He was not aware of the manipulation of his daughters-in-law in the house. He used to go there only to eat food. He did not interfere in the domestic affairs and left everything to Nanda as female head of the family. It was difficult to suggest whether Nanda changed her habits. This daughter-in-law also moved out of the house and started to live in a separate place in the same village and later moved to live in Delhi with her husband and children. The youngest daughter-in-law, however, always lived with Nanda. Jay's youngest brother inherited all the properties and the wealth. His wife, however, showed no special respect for Nanda. During the last years of her life, she felt as if she was a responsibility and obstruction to her youngest son and daughter-in-law. They never took her to doctors when she was sick. They did not provide enough nourishing food and gave her only sufficient food to survive. Her milk, vegetables, and fruits were stopped. Even after 30 or 40 years, the elder daughters-in-law did not forget how they were treated in the village. She was not visited by them or invited to their houses, even at the time of festivals like Diwali and Holi or Navratri celebrations. Jay felt pity at this situation and offered that she should come to live with him. His wife Reena promptly stopped him from doing so. She was very frank and told him that even in her old age she would make their lives miserable. He was not aware of the modus operandi that Reena sustained in the village because he was never informed of the happenings in the past. Nanda continued to live with the youngest son until she died at the age of 87. Going back to the early years in Jay's life, it was not until the summertime, 4 years after their marriage, that Jay met his wife and spent a whole month with her in the village. Jay wanted to get married at the age of 23 anyway. He therefore did not think of the past years or how his wife lived in his absence. She did not tell him anything about the last 4 years or the dealings and the treatment by other members of his family. At the end of the summer holiday, he returned to his school to teach. He was very busy with his schoolwork, preparing teaching plan, reading and writing. In October of the same year, a war broke out between India and China, commonly known as the Sino-India War of 1962. His father was a little concerned about the war's effect on Jay, who told him that the war was taking place in northeast India in the Himalayas. He lived in west-central India in Rajasthan. There would be no impact of the war on him personally. There were many soldiers in the India Army from Jay's village. One of his village soldiers, Rohan, was sent to fight in the 1962 war against China. Jay knew him well. His house was only 6 doors away from his parental home. Rohan was reported missing, but he never returned to the village. After a few months, he was assumed dead. Rohan was 6 feet, 2 inches tall, well-built, polite and ever smiling. He was always ready to help others when required. He was a high school graduate, but he was very smart and clever. He was an athlete and passed the entry examination and health test to join the Indian Army. He had two brothers. The elder brother worked on the farms. He was educated only up to primary education. He did not leave the village to obtain any further education. Rohan's younger brother left the village after his primary schooling, but returned home after completing his high school education and started to work on the farms with his eldest brother. The death of Soldier Rohan was a great loss to the family, the village, and to the nation. Many young men joined the army in the past from Jay's village, but he had never heard of any casualty. The Indian government sent a sewing machine to Rohan's widow. She could start an independent life by earning her living by stitching clothes for the villagers. She lived a lonely life and never married again. She continued to live in the same house with her in-laws. Her brother-in-law always gave her share of the crops and met any other requirement she asked for. The question Jay asked, why did China attack the Indian borders when the politicians of both countries were talking? Several reasons could be considered to seek an answer. China had been an aggressor nation since the communist takeover in 1949. It occupied Tibet in 1950 when the world's attention was drawn towards the Korean crisis. Another view was that China wanted to disrupt the Indian economic development and defense preparedness before India became powerful to be taken on. It wanted a disruption in India, which could lead to the fall of her democracy and the Nehru government. It thought that the Indian people would accept communism. China made fun of India's non-aligned policy. The Chinese domestic reasons might have compelled her to seek diversion. In 1962, the superpowers, the United States of America and the Soviet Union, were engaged in finding a solution to the Cuban crisis, and the world attention was centered on that issue. China took advantage of the situation and attacked India. By controlling Indian land area, it built the Xinjiang-Tibet Road. Through Aksai Chin area of the Ladakh province of India, the Chinese had consolidated their position in Ladakh, and the Indians could do nothing to stop them. The result of the 1962 India-China War was that Prime Minister Nehru lost faith in human nature. He trusted Zhou Enlai and treated him as a friend. Yet, the Chinese broke their promise and commitment to solve all disputes by peaceful negotiations. They should have respected the Indian sovereignty, not attacked it. In the past, China had recognized the Indian borders.